Then verse 21. Adversity pursues sinners, but the righteous will be rewarded with prosperity. Again, we apply that spiritually. It is basically the same thing that it says in Galatians 6:9, and that's a theme that recurs again and again in Proverbs. What we sow, we will reap. And usually, whatever we sow, we're going to reap 100 times, or 10 times, or 30 times, or 60 times, or 100 times. Whatever it is, it's going to be much more than what we have sown. And here's a simple principle that we must bear in mind, that we cannot avoid sowing. Let me use a very simple illustration. Supposing I am a farmer and I've sown potatoes at the time of sowing, and then near harvest time, I say, oh, I didn't want potatoes, I wanted tomatoes. And I kneel down and I have prayer meetings, fasting and prayer, and say, oh God, please give me tomatoes. Do a miracle and give me tomatoes at harvest time. I just want to say that you're not going to get tomatoes, despite all the fasting and prayer. You can say, Lord, please forgive me for sowing those potatoes. God will forgive you. But what will come forth is still potatoes. We mustn't forget that even when God forgives us, there is still a reaping of what we have sown in the past. Let me give you an example of that. Adversity pursues sinners. Here is a young man who has indulged in reading dirty sexual novels and read pornographic books and seen pornographic pictures and indulged in them and indulged in them and indulged in them, indulged in them and indulged in them, say up to the age of 25. And here's another young man who avoided all that and was just a morally good person. Both were not converted. Both got converted at the same time, at the age of 25. And you'll find this person who had not indulged in all this pornographic literature has an easier time later on as a Christian with his dreams and his thoughts than that other person who indulged in it so much. Both are forgiven. But one person is constantly harassed in his thoughts and his dreams by the potatoes that he has sown for so many years. And that's why you've got to be very careful. For each book you read and picture you put into your mind is like a seed sown there. It's going to come back 10 times later on in life. Later on in life, when you would wish that you could be free from some of these things, and God forgives you. He forgives you, but the reaping is still going to be there. It's not going to be tomatoes, it's going to be potatoes, even though you're forgiven. And that's the thing that should put a fear into our hearts about what we sow. Because it says adversity pursues sinners. This harvest sort of runs after the seed that is sown. But it can be the other way around too, that what we sow good, here we fill our mind with the Word of God, and the Word of God is something good, we're thinking good thoughts of others, and avoid all that's evil. That's also going to produce a harvest of good. The righteous will be rewarded with prosperity. So forgiveness is not everything. And we can be forgiven and still be tremendously harassed by the memory of our past life. And there you can think what a wonderful inheritance it is for young people to grow up without all this sexually polluting literature and dirty thoughts. I'll tell you this, 10 years from now, some of you who are in your teens today will be thankful if you listen to what you heard tonight. If the Lord tarries, you'll be very thankful when you become a wholehearted brother and sister that you kept your early youth pure from all the filthy things that others in your school and college are indulging in. Be careful in this area. Verse 22, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his grandchildren also, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Well, that's certainly true in the Old Testament. What Abraham gave to Isaac, what Abraham had when he died, descended even to Jacob. And we can apply that also in the New Testament spiritually. That if you live a God-fearing, upright, righteous life, you can give an inheritance that affects not only your children, but also your grandchildren. And that is really the greatest inheritance that a man can leave, not only his children, but his grandchildren. The influence of a godly life, the memory that a son or a daughter has of a father who was God-fearing, a father who wouldn't tell lies, A father who did not yell at his mother. A mother who knew how to submit to father as the church to Christ. Think what an inheritance it can be to children. Much more than money. A father who was upright, who wouldn't do anything wrong to make money. A father who was righteous. A father who longed to obey the Word of God. A mother who longed to obey the Word of God. Such parents can leave an inheritance to their children, and it will affect those children in such a way that it will be manifest in their grandchildren. Wonderful inheritance. But the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous, not perhaps in this life, but certainly it's going to be true in the next life, that all that this earth has, which sinners consider their wealth, is finally going to be taken by God and handed over to the righteous. The meek will inherit the earth and everything in it. Verse 23. Abundant food is in the fallow ground of the poor, but it is swept away by injustice. Now, I understand that verse to mean that a poor man may have a small little farm, and he can think that nothing much can come out of it. But it says here, a tremendous lot can come out of that little that a poor man has. Like I said earlier about the 1 talent. The poor man is the man with 1 talent, and he says, oh, what can come out of this 1 talent? A tremendous lot can come out of that 1 talent. Think if that 1 talent is the word of encouragement. What a lot can come out of that 1 talent. You can produce 100 talents with that 1 talent if you use it. And don't wrap it up in a napkin and bury it so that you spend year after year after year never giving a word of encouragement to anybody, in your home or outside your home. But in many other areas too, all of us can tend to think we have so little. We have so little gifts. We have so little abilities. We have so little of this and this, that and the other. But a tremendous lot can come out of that little. I thought of that in relation to the drama we presented yesterday. How the expense in that, if it were out there in the world, would have been some fantastic figure. But we made do with old curtains and so many other things, and so much can be produced out of so little. Out of so little we can produce so much. Provided the person does not ruin his whole life by being unrighteous, it says. If he's unrighteous in his life, then of course, whether he's got little or much, it's just going to ruin. It's all going to be ruined. But a tremendous lot can come out of the little resources you have, the little abilities you have, the little wisdom you have, the little spirituality you have, the little you have of gift and talent. A tremendous lot can come out of it. There's abundant food possible out of that, if we humble ourselves and use it faithfully for the glory of God. Much can come from the little that you possess. For example, even materially, you may have little compared to some other brothers, but you can use that little so carefully that not only much comes out of that little that you have, but such character develops in your life of being careful in the use of material things, which a rich person never develops that character. He can tend to be more free and loose with things, buying a whole lot of things that are unnecessary and so many things which are quite unnecessary. There's abundant food in the fallow ground of the poor, provided it's not wasted through unrighteousness.